Want to welcome everybody who's joined us today, as well as folks viewing at a later time on the recording, to today's installment of Partner Positives in our ongoing partner webinar series for the Neon One ecosystem. My name is Tim Sarantonio. I'll be our MC for today. So I'm Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Neon One. And let me tell you a little bit about us before getting to the meat and potatoes of today. So next slide, Mary, for us. So Neon One is a technology ecosystem that is looking to change the world by empowering nonprofits to reach their full potential with the best nonprofit technology. And so a little bit of that, and that's going to be found on the next slide, in terms of what does that actually mean. Oh, there's the animation. I was like, where's the space? So on the next slide, a little bit of what that practically means, and we're going to actually dive into that a tiny bit today. We're really here to celebrate Mary's expertise, but we also like to say, look, people have actual work to do, and so the things that we provide people on an everyday basis are a few different products. And so the primary things that Neon One provides are Neon CRM, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about at the end of today, taking some of the concepts of donor experience and applying that practically in the CRM. It's something I've been using for over, coming up to 10 years now myself for my own nonprofits. But we also do things in the digital fundraising space for peer-to-peer. So Rallybound's one of the premier platforms for that, powering Michael J. Fox Foundation, Sierra Club, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. But then we also have Civicor, which does a few different interesting things. Big Giving Days is one that they're very well known for. So North Texas Giving Days coming up in just a few days, and that's going to expect to bring in about $50 million. We power that. And we ensure that the nonprofits, the community foundations, and the donors are all coming in a dedicated space to kind of come together and celebrate their community. But also we provide client case management. So this is, I think, a very underdeveloped portion of the nonprofit technology space. So things like VOCA and HIPAA compliance, very sensitive information that needs to be managed for clients. These are things that we can definitely provide, as well as an arts and ticketing platform from arts people. And I know, Mary, you have, I always cite some of the work that you've done in that space. That's something that you actually have a background in. But
a long time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we do a bunch of different stuff, and we're trying to help and make a big difference, serving over 30,000 nonprofits, raising $10 billion for charitable causes, and really it's for any size organization. And the big difference is that we try to make sure that things are integrated, as well as processes. So even down to curating the consultants that we work with. This isn't that we just say, anybody who pays us or something like that gets in the directory. We actually work with them to certify them around our products and also around their expertise. And that's why we're excited to welcome Mary Kalan. And I'm saying that correctly now.
You are.
I am. I've gotten it down. So wanted to just do a little bit of introductions. But Mary, we've been working together for a while now, and I'm really excited about this topic. So I'm going to hand the reins over to you, and really excited for you to take us through, except for the few housekeeping items. I think there's going to be some more animations in here. So first, yes, this will be recorded. We have a dedicated YouTube channel, and we'll be able to follow up with some supporting materials if you need it, around any of the things that we're going to be talking today. And so very excited to now hand the reins over to you, Mary, and we'll be I'll be following the questions that anybody might be typing in. Feel free to use the Q&A at any point today, but we'll definitely be leaving some time at the end.
Well, hello, everybody. We're going to talk about great donor experience today. And this may be, the latest thing that you hear people talking about, but it really is important. And it just is one of those things we maybe didn't ever stop to think about when we're talking and thinking about how we relate to our donors. So hopefully after today, you'll have a better idea of what that means, and maybe spark some ideas about how you can create your own organization's particular great experience. Just a little quick bit about me so you know who the heck is talking to you. I'm old. I've been fundraising for more than 30 years. I now have my own little consultancy, and I mainly focus on donor communications and fundraising strategy. And as you'll see from today, this donor love thing isn't just a slogan. It works. It's what fundraising is really about. So I love this quote from Maya Angelou. I'm sure you know it, but I wanted to give you a chance to look at it again because this, in a nutshell, is what donor experience is all about. And that bold part, by the way, that is your brand, not what colors you use or the typeface. How you make donors feel. So what is donor experience? It's the whole sum of every interaction that a potential donor or donor has with you. And from your side, it's your opportunity at every step along that way, every touch point, to make a really good and lasting impression. Donors stick with you because they feel needed, they feel wanted, they feel personally seen. Nobody really wants to be just another number in a big pool of mindless donor IDs. And this is why it really matters. So this picture may look fairly innocuous, but this is donor retention rates for the last 4 years. That bright red line, that's the 50% mark. Look at where we are, and last year was even worse. Donor retention is awful. Or to put it another way, every $100 gained in 2017, 96 of it lost because donors didn't come back. It's coming in the door and right back out the door. That's a waste of your time. It's a waste of wonderful opportunities to keep your donors happy and involved. It's just a waste. It's terrible. Adrian Sargent, you probably know who he is. He's a nonprofit fundraising researcher. This is what he does. He's an academic and studies this stuff. There's a direct correlation between donor satisfaction with their experience, not just with you as sort of an amorphous brand, but with their experience with you and whether they'll give to your organization again. So if you can nail this experience thing, if you can make them feel wonderful, they're very likely to stick with you for the long term, and that's really what you want. This is another way to look at it in corporate speak. Marketers who are successful in customer experience marketing, look at all these big words, are reaping the benefits. Customers are 5.2 times more likely to purchase from companies with a great customer experience. You better believe the smart marketers out there, the smart for-profit companies, are focused like a laser on every step of the experience. And you can tell the difference, right, between one of those companies, I don't know, I'm not an Apple person, but think of Apple and the mad loyalty their customer base has from them and the thought they put into every step of the way. Whereas if you walk into a giant, I don't know, a Walmart or something, maybe not so much, or maybe, I don't know. I don't shop there often. So where do you get started? You get started with what you already know. Step into your donor's shoes. Try secret shopping your own organization or ask a friend to. See how easy it is to interact online or through the mail with your organization. What was difficult? What felt kind of cold? Or what was just plain frustrating? Think through every step that a new donor might take, from being aware of your existence to taking an action to giving, and then to being thanked, being told what their gift made possible, being thanked again, and hopefully finally giving again. You also have to really dig into your data and everything else you can find to learn who your donor is. Now, unless you have a very nice, tiny little organization, you're not going to know each and every donor personally, you personally one-to-one with them. But you can get a good picture of your general donor persona, or better yet, if you've got a lot there, the personas of different segments of your donor base. Obviously, not all donors are the same, but if you look, you'll see there are some characteristics that most of your donors share. In a very broad sense, we know that most donors are probably an older woman. Now, is that true across the board of every organization? No. But if you had to make a donor persona just for Jane donor, it would be a Jane, and it would probably be 70 or even 80 years old. It's safe to think of that if you have no other information to go on as generally your donor. But the more information you can get, the more well-rounded you can create this picture in your head of who your donor is, the better it makes sense, the better you can create an experience that will please. Find out what it is about your mission, too, that excites your donors. Why you? What is it about what you do that makes them feel good about giving? It all comes down, to begin with, at least, to your data. And this is why having a good system and great hygiene is so very critical. You need to pay attention to this side of it. This is not a task to hand off to the intern, unless that intern is really smart and knows their way around a database. Think about what information you're collecting now. And do you have a way to record it properly so that someone 3 years from now could dig in and understand exactly what you were doing? The more you know, the better you can respond, the better the experiences you can create. There are so many ways you can get to know your donor, and so many little pieces of information you could potentially collect. There's sort of more high-tech things like organizations that are big enough to be able to track clicks and look at the pages and connect that to the donor record and know exactly what donors came to your website looking for. But everybody, or your major gifts people who are meeting face-to-face with donors, can they come back and can that information get put into the system so someone else would be able to make sense of it? They have a daughter who's 23 years old and is a nurse. Any kind of little bits and pieces of information that might make sense down the road for another major gift officer to know. Think about how you can collect and how you can keep clean all that great donor. A good system is the cornerstone of a good donor experience. Feedback is often overlooked. As you're creating a good experience, the way to know if you're on the right track is to ask. Think about what information you want to ask for and how. Can you ask a quick question when they're on the website? Can you build feedback requests into your thank you process? Please call me at any time. Can you create surveys for your donors and make that part of your annual communication stream? You might really be surprised what you learn, and you might be delighted with what you learn. Doing donor surveys was one of the most fun things I ever decided to do because it was so much fun to see what people had to say. Most of all, plan the entire process. This is not something to wing. You really have to have it mapped out in front of you if you're going to commit to making this really work. Think through, work through all the potential steps along the way. Start with this plan. You can change it, you can adapt it based on the feedback you get as you gather more information, but you need to be intentional about the planning. So think of it this way. Are you lucky enough to have one of those lifelong friends, one of those people you met when you were 4 or 5 and who's still in your life? I do, and I always joke that I have to be really careful because she's got a fabulous memory and she can remember every awful, embarrassing thing I ever did. But do you remember meeting them and then getting to know them, helping each other? Something, even though you weren't thinking about it at the time, something about that initial experience and then every experience all the way along has kept you together, has made that a worthwhile relationship. That's what you're aiming at. How to build that long-term, back and forth, give and take kind of relationship. There's a process there. So let's start right at the very beginning, even before someone's a donor. Probably these days, the first way they connect with you might be your website. So think about what happens there. It could be word of mouth, it could be social media, but think about what those very first contacts are like. Are they pleasant? Are they interesting? Is it something that will attract them to ask for more information or possibly even make a gift? Think through that whole, every little touch. When donors get to your site, does what they see connect to what they already know about you? So is your messaging all of a whole? Does it make sense in all its little pieces? Is the messaging coordinated? And once they're there, can they get what they want immediately and easily from the site? Can they take action? Perhaps your website and messaging did their job. You've got their interest. And you had a simple call to action on the homepage. Maybe take a quick survey or sign a petition. And they do. This is great. But what happens next? So they've done what you ask. What happens next? How easy and how rewarding was that first step? So they took it. How do they know that you know they took it? Are they getting an immediate thank you? Are you letting them know the results of the poll? Are you telling them what happened because they signed the petition? You need to close that feedback loop. You need to let them know that you know that they chose to connect with you in some way. Remember the best friends a couple of slides ago? That relationship wouldn't have lasted unless there was that back and forth. So after that first step, make sure you have a second step planned out. This is the first chance you have to make a new donor, to find a new donor, or to keep an older donor, because it's all a loop. But every time you have this opportunity, are you making the most of it? We don't give because we like to hand people our hard-earned money. We give because it feels really good to do that. And we like to think of ourselves as giving people. It makes us feel good about ourselves, and that is really valuable. The selfish reason we give is because we want to think we're great. So once you have someone's attention, a big part of the job is to keep reinforcing that idea that they are good people and they're doing a good thing. Flattery works, especially and only if you can be absolutely sincere about it. Even if you know nothing about this donor, you know that they chose to make a gift to you. So that, by definition, means they're a good person. Flattery isn't phony, it's useful, and it's really, really powerful. So don't hold back. This is where emotions matter, and you have to share your emotions in order to trigger their emotions. So it can't be all buttoned up business. You've got to be ready to share your heart as well. Make that potential or brand new donor feel like she can or did do a great thing. And also that now she's an insider. There's something about stepping through that door and welcome. You're now part of the team, part of the tribe, part of the family. Sometimes that's even before she's given a dime. Maybe once she's signed that petition that you wanted. Any way you can welcome people is a good thing. Say what you wanted was an email address. So she's given you her email address. This is a good time to really welcome her. You can do that by having that automatically trigger a welcome series or by mailing a welcome pack. There's nothing like opening your arms and telling people they really are needed and wanted and welcome to make people feel great. A welcome series is a great and really easy thing to do. Can be maybe 2 to 4 emails. You can set it to run automatically. You can thank them for taking action in the first email. You can ask what your organization can do for her in the second email. You can ask for feedback maybe in the third email, maybe a quick little survey. And then you can ask for a gift. Here's the other big point, this critical point between whether you retain a donor or whether a donor just made a one-off gift and walked right through your your door and out the other side. So she's feeling good about herself, and therefore about your organization. Your donor makes that first gift. What you do now is critical. So if she thanked immediately with messaging and images that match the ask, that will build trust, and that will also lead her to feel that she's seen. You know, she's recognized not just as one of a many, but as a person who made a personal decision. Then does she get a more personal thank you, not just an auto receive? Is the thank you all about gratitude and the donor, or all about your organization? After that, does she get some sort of impact report, a donor newsletter, or even an email updating her on what her gift made possible? You can build all of this into your workflow, and it will become just automatic. And then, do you ask for that second gift? That's really critical. Too often we wait too long to ask for that second gift, and by then you're out of sight and out of mind. So you can ask again for a small gift. This whole process of a great donor experience has to be something everyone in the organization commits to. You have a plan, then you need everyone committed to being part of it. If your organization is not bought in, it could be a problem. Think about maybe the person answering the phones can't properly handle this donor, doesn't know what's going on, or an upset current donor calls and someone decides to handle them poorly. All of that can just undo all of the good work you've been trying to do. It comes down to a culture of philanthropy, and that is not something that can just live in the fundraising office. Everyone should feel a part of this. Everyone should get to celebrate the wins. Everyone should feel like they're representatives to the larger community for your work. Everyone should feel like they're obligated to welcome donors and treat them well. So a little bit more detail, what makes a good experience? I love this little guy smile, don't you? First of all, ease. This is something that once you're on the inside and as staff and you've worked with this website or seen your mailings 1,000 times, it all seems so perfectly logical. Of course, this is how it all works. But you have to look at it from the outside in. Is that website easy to navigate? You can find out because you can look and see how many people are abandoning an online donation. That can tell you something really important. Are you using complicated language or confusing language or jargon, you know, inside talk? That's not the kind of inside donors want. Change it, make it simple, make it easy. Can someone call and speak to a person at your organization? A person who can actually take care of their problem? I had a problem years ago with an organization. I really needed to talk to someone about it. None of the fundraising offices' names or contact information were on the website. I finally found through many Google searches an 800 number, took me to a call center, and they were able to get a message to the development officer. That's nuts. If you're a fundraiser, your information has to be easy to find. Ask yourself, is it easy to find the donate button? Is the ask clear and concise? Can someone navigate directly to the donation form? Is that form as short as possible? Is it simple, clear, and easy to understand, even for someone not entirely comfortable online? Remember that basic donor profile of an older woman? And not everyone likes to be online, but they may feel like that's where they need to go. They're sitting there, scrunching their eyes at their iPad, probably sitting in front of them, and trying to figure out how to fill in your form. Design the form for them, and the 30-something who's got fabulous vision will still be able to fill it out. Do it the other way around and you'll lose people. So please don't tell me you do these things, and I've seen every one of them. Donation forms that are 2 or 3 pages long. You ask everything, including their mother's maiden name, or asking people to register before they can give to you. Do you really want to put up fences before someone can hand you a gift? I don't think so. Or include a CAPTCHA. Are you really afraid of people making a gift without being approved somehow? It's not going to happen, folks. You've got to show a little bit of trust on that side. You don't need any of those things. You need to be focused on your donor's interests in order to build a great experience. Good communications isn't about what you want to say. It's about what your donor wants to know. A good experience answers those donor questions intuitively, just naturally, because it's designed based on feedback from your donors. So what do your donors want to know? Why does it matter? If I give, what will change? How do I do this? Here, unfortunately, is an old thank you letter I kept around as a bad example. Sorry, Dana-Farber. It's actually very old, so hopefully they're doing better now. But if you take a look at this text, it's all about them. Everything is about them. We're top ranked. We're fabulous. We're world renowned. This is a thank you letter. It should be all about the donor. And you can see in the green highlight, even in a thank you letter, whether you've made a gift or this is an all-purpose letter. It can't even say a thank you letter because it's not about a donor. This is not personal. This is saying absolutely that you're one of a large number and we don't really care that much about you, but we figured we'd probably send you a letter because that's what we do. Not the way you want to go. This, on the other hand, was another one I kept, and it's also old, but this was a thank you just to say thanks. This wasn't in response to a gift. This was a thank you just to say, we noticed you've been giving for a long time, and we appreciate you. And because you've been involved, these are the things we've gotten done together. I also love this on the right-hand side. That was an actual little piece of netting, paper clipped. If you can do anything personal like that on a mailing, always go for it. But it was warm, it was personal, it really said, thank you, you are important, you the donor. That's what you want to go for. This experience needs to be interesting and relevant, and nothing, and this is a human trait across the board, nothing is more relevant, nothing is more interesting than ourselves. So you see this little guy looking at himself in a mirror. It's just part of human nature. You say someone's name, their head will snap. You use the word you in your communications a lot, their eyes will go to it. So do your donors see themselves as important to your work or just ATM? Here's probably interesting information for a donor. It's a big reason for sending a donor newsletter is to report on what work is getting done. But in this case, again, it's all about the organization. There's nothing here that's about the donor until you get to the end of the newsletter and it says, oh yeah, thanks for giving. You know, if you're going to send a donor newsletter, make it about the donor. We're interested in what affects us. So connect it to the donor, to their questions, to their fears, to their interests, to their generosity. This is a donor newsletter that's about the donor. It's from my friends at Safe Passage, a domestic violence organization. Notice who gets all the credit? It's about the donor, not about them. We all want to feel like good people. So build lots of that into your communications and into that donor experience. Remember, communications is ideally two-way. This is why asking for feedback every opportunity you can think of is smart. How easy are you to reach? I told you about that Google search just to get in touch with someone about a gift I'd made. Make sure you are easy to be found. And once you are found, make sure you actually let the donors connect, not just leave a message and you'll get to them next month. Ask more. Ask all the time. Look for feedback that you can put into action and tweak your plan. These are just some examples. There's a free widget that Donor Voice has that you can put into your site. They said it'll be free forever and ever, so it's worth looking at. That will trigger requests for feedback as people visit your site. You can enclose, you can include rather a survey in your email series. We talked about that. You can send a print donor survey. Those are really fun. And especially if you've got donors who prefer mail, remember, not everyone is in the habit of looking at email or even has an email address, or if they do, likes to be online. So a print survey could be really useful if your donors are a little older. Or here's a crazy idea, call donors and ask for their thoughts. Ask them, the relief in their voice when you're not calling to ask immediately for a gift is always fun too. Ask them what they think. People love to be asked their opinion. Invite questions and comments in your thank you letters, and include a way for people to comment on your site. Maybe it's a donors page where they can ask you questions, or on social media. Make sure the door is open and they know it. These relationships need to be reciprocal. Think about giving to donors as well as getting from donors. Have you ever felt really excited about giving someone a gift? You found the perfect thing. You can't wait for them to open it. There's that. So donors, you want them to feel that way about every gift they make to you. You can't wait for them to get it, and they know it's going to mean something important to them. You want that. But what the gift you're giving your donors is that feeling of emotional satisfaction. And if you just leave it on them to try to drum up that feeling, you're missing a fabulous opportunity. So think about how you can give them that emotional satisfaction, that warm glow, every little touch point, all the time, constantly. It could be in your newsletter, and I really love print newsletters for this. They can be wonderful things. Or maybe you send a thank you just because, not tied to a gift, but just because you're thinking of them and they're important. All those little steps you can take that really aren't hard, keep them feeling wonderful about giving to you. Emotional satisfaction. You don't need tote bags, you need emotional satisfaction. Because your goal with this whole donor experience is joy, donor joy. Feed their joy, feed their need to feel great, and they will keep sending you money and feeling great, and you'll both be really happy. It's that all over wonderful feeling you get when you know you've done something good. Have you ever helped a stranger with something? Even if it's something small, like someone was struggling with a door and you ran over to make sure you hold it. You feel good. Inside you're saying, patting yourself on your own back and saying, I'm a good person. That's what you want your donors to have the chance to feel every single step of the way. You want them feeling so good they can't wait to do it again. And Tim, I think you had some practical lessons you wanted to add.
I did. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in what you were talking about, and you know, the enthusiasm that you bring gets me fired up. I'll say that in terms of this type of stuff. And so what I'm going to do, and for anybody who's joined us a little bit late, we've been recording this. Don't worry, so you'll be able to relive Mary's enthusiasm as well as a few practical lessons that I'm going to show us in Neon CRM. So what I'm going to do is pop on over to my screen over here, and so so Mary, you should be seeing my screen at this.
I am seeing your screen.
Awesome. So if you don't know, Neon CRM is a cloud-based database system that serves over almost 5,000 organizations at this point. And so I thought a lot about this when I was working with Mary about the content. And I think, you know, a lot of times when we talk about this relating to technology, it's always very broad, right?
Yep.
And I want to do the opposite. I actually want to go extremely granular in terms of how does donor joy relate into the mechanics and guts of actually managing a database. Because if you're a development director, you're still going to be asked reports on who you should be engaging for a personalized touch. If
Yep.
you're a person like me who was a development associate, for instance, I'm the grunt entering data into this type of stuff. And I think that a lot of times we literally structure the fields in our database in a way that precludes us from really getting to donor joy.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I think that you can do when you're working in a database is thinking about field configuration in two primary ways. The first is actual fields that you are using and thinking about. And so one of the things that, and I'm going to be honest, I did this on the fly, Mary, while you were talking, was that we have this account data in Neon CRM here. You organize things by, you know, a lot of different itemized information, you know, a timeline for actions, things like that. But the account page is the about page is like where you get the quick overview of who somebody is, right? And so for me, you know, things like account types are very important. Those are basic tags, but I actually added this donor satisfaction score on the fly here.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about how we structure fields is that if you go ahead and edit these, yes, you can do it from the back end, but that's not really donor centric, right? So something like this, these fields here, communications, are very forward facing. So notice there's a few different configurations here. We got the drop downs, the check boxes, things like that. Any single one of these can actually be updated onto an online form, either a survey that's built into the platform that automatically populates the record information, or just a donation page. So you'd be able to add it to the donation page. And so what's interesting is that you can also name the field one thing in the back end, but you can also then change the language on the form to be a little bit more friendly, right? So maybe you don't want a really long question in your back end database.
Right.
That's fine. So then go to the form itself and rename it like donor satisfaction score. Gets to the point, you know, maybe even you rename it like DSS, you know, or something like that. You know what it is. But on your forward-facing form, it's like, how did we do?
Right. Right.
You know, talk to them in human language. You know, there's a difference between structuring data. You know, but back in the day, everything used to have a code, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and that you don't have to do that anymore. The other thing that I think is also interesting is just even how you look at the data itself, right? And so configuring this is the type of thing that it's like, you know what, I want to look at email first, or Mary, you know, I know the direct mail piece is like, I want to put all my address data first.
Yeah.
Looking at, because I'm actually entering pieces of data. And so this is very quick where I can say, you know what, I don't want to see this, you know, and there's a very obvious flag of that. And then I can also reorganize all these different things here and just kind of drag it and say, okay, I want my customer data, or, you know, some, we actually work with, so you talked about donor voice, that's from Roger Craver.
Yep.
And so True Givers is another Roger Craver thing that we work with that automatically cleans address data on a nightly basis for your way up.
Awesome.
Yeah. So so that's an integration that we support, that we love over here at Neon, because now I discarded my changes because I didn't want to move that stuff around. But even little things like this are going to have a big impact. The other one that I think is important is when we're also taking notes on the conversations that we have with people. You know, Mary, you and I talked about this, where we don't listen enough.
Yeah.
You know, and so when we're talking to people, I think it's important to even put into processes that when you listen, you can immediately and quickly enter that information into your CRM. I even had an interesting Partner Positives webinar yesterday where it was like, so you know, you would probably describe yourself as old school, Mary. I think that's fair, right?
Sure.
So the one I did yesterday was with the Giving Day guy, and everything was about like social media and doing live streaming and all these different things. But what's interesting is that they both came down to listening.
Yeah. Right.
Both of them came down to listening. It doesn't matter if you're engaging people in any medium, you have to listen to them. His idea was, if somebody tweets about you on social media and you can tie it to the database, that I said, why don't you actually take the screenshot that you use to put on your Instagram feed and celebrate them, and then attach it to their record for later reference?
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't want to have to hunt through Twitter or Instagram for that. You have it right there in the donor record. Same thing with a phone call, same thing with a letter, same thing with a newspaper article that might be about the person. These are things that if you put into processes in terms of like using basic human language of, we had lunch, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then putting in like the dates, auto-populating that information, but then what notes are you taking? And you can say, look, I want to do free text, and that's fine. Or you can get in there and actually put in detailed fields and stuff like that. So I want to make sure that we leave time for questions. Again, this is like a little tease of what Neon can do. But the only other one that I think is interesting relating to what you were talking about is configuring different types of those acknowledgments.
Yes.
And so even something down to letters or emails, I'm going to use email just because I know that that's something that, some folks poo-poo because they think it's going to be very standardized, right? They think it's going to be very
Yes.
boilerplate.
Yes. Canned. Yeah.
Canned. Well, what I love is that in Neon, you can actually create conditions to say, you know what? I'm going to send this capital campaign letter or email that is geared toward these specific pieces of criteria. It could be a campaign. It could be that it's a honor and memorial gift, and you can mix and match these. It can be the fact that they are, a company. You know what? I don't want my grant campaigns, for instance, to have an email automatically sent to these people.
Right. Right.
And I know that my intern, who I am very confident in their skills, but they're doing this and they sometimes forget to check the box. Well, that's fine. This will override that type of stuff. So you can get in there and personalize things. And my personal favorite is the in-kind one, for instance, because that, or donor advised funds, things like
Yes.
that. They should have very specific language from an accounting standpoint.
Exactly.
That you can get ahead of and automate, and you could do the same with letters. So, what I'm going to do is we're going to open it up for Q&A. I am going to launch a little poll right now, if that's okay, in terms of like, would you like a little bit more information about Neon? That's great. As that's running though, definitely want to see if we have any questions that we can answer for the folks that have attended today. Otherwise, Mary, what are your thoughts when it comes to like where technology is going and things of that nature?
Technology used right, can be enormously helpful in making your relationships with donors more personal. It seems like machines should get in the way, but they're fabulous tools for making everything feel and work like one-to-one relationships, and that's really the goal. So everything you can do to make your donor feel like a person, an individual, not one of many, but important in her own right,
yeah,
is key. And tech can do that for you if you use it right.
I think it's just being intentional in terms of like before you even map out your technology implementation, and this could be CRM, this could be, when you're doing online fundraising, it could be events, it doesn't matter. These things should be supplementing. They should not be replacing anything.
Oh, yes, absolutely. They're tools for you, not instead of you.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of things that I think automation can do, for instance, that, that can get you there, but you're not going to replace a major gift officer,
no,
with any of this type of stuff. And so I think that's important, but even just laying out what's the journey, what's the ideal donor experience that you want to have happen, and then just draw lines to where you think the technology is going to be able to help.
Yep.
Anyway, I don't want to take up the oxygen here. So if we have any questions, we're at the ready. Otherwise, we can kind of kick off a little early today. Not too early. We actually used up most of our time today. Any questions, folks? All right.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to thank everybody for coming today. Really appreciate you're checking out what we're doing today and talking about here. And otherwise, Mary, any final words for us before we sign off for today?
Go love your donors, and they'll love you back.
I think there's nothing more to be said than that. So thank you very much, folks. Have a great day.